Maricel Herrera. She is a speaker that I met at USHI for 2 years in a row now, and I'm very happy to have her here today. And I would like for all of us to give her a nice warm welcome. She came all the way from Phoenix and went through a lot to be able to get here to us. So everybody give her a nice warm Bronco welcome.
She's referring to my trip here. I was a little bit delayed, and so I just got in this morning, even though I headed out yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there was a delay in Phoenix. A security breach of a weapon on board. Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it. So we were stuck on a plane for 2 hours, and then I missed my connection to Kalamazoo and ended up staying in a hotel and finally got here today. So I came a long way because you're worth it. I came a long way because she has been working, and Alicia has been working since summertime to try to get me here. And these two young women are the most persistent Latinas I've ever met. Okay, there has been every kind of sort of confusion and obstacle to overcome, including physically getting me here yesterday and then this morning. And these two young women have been steadfast. And so I want to give a round of applause to them and to the Latino Student Alliance. Anybody else would have given up by now. And because they wouldn't give up, I wouldn't give up. So there were times I was like, okay, I'm not sure this is going to happen. No, it's going to happen. So there was a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of passion that came forth to do this, and I really, really respect that. I want you to know, Ms. Ramirez, that this really reflects well on Western Michigan University, because sometimes you work with student organization, and sometimes, you know, things happen and they could be a little flaky and stuff. And so their persistence not only reflected on them individually, but it reflected on the whole institution. And that's how it really goes down in life, right? But what we do, we have no idea the ripple effect. So I've been telling my colleagues in Arizona about Western Michigan before I even got here because of that leadership. So I'm really, really excited to be here. I was sharing that I love this space. I can just, you guys hang out here, don't you? Yeah, I mean, I totally want to hang out here. In fact, I might just, like in the middle of the presentation, sit down or something with y'all and let you guys run the presentation. Seriously, I love environments like this, and I always tell people when I talk with groups that I really like to have conversations with people. I don't like to talk at people. I don't necessarily believe that I'm the expert because I have the mic or the credential or whatever it is. I really believe in a co-learning environment. So I love the fact that we're like in the living room, and usually the metaphor I use is let's all sit together like we would be at the kitchen table talking when talking among women and the like. And so to me, this is the big kitchen table, or the sala, the living room, where we're getting together. So what I hope to have tonight is, yes, a presentation, and I got a PowerPoint, but you know what? I might not use the PowerPoint, I might free flow, I just go with what's going on in the room. And I came a really long way to help speak encouragement to you, to help speak life to you, to give you some wisdom. But I also came to learn from you. So if at any point you want to say something or share something or challenge something, or maybe not challenge, but or whatever it is, I just want you to know that I get out of that, I get something out of that as well. So this is not me talking at you kind of thing. So my presentation today is called Raíces y Alas. Rooted in strength, soaring to success. When they asked me to come out, they were like, I want you to talk about culture as strength, celebrating culture, and particularly celebrating Latino culture. And so I kind of went with that, and then I put my own spin on it. I really found this image, and I fell in love with it, this idea that we have these strong roots and this foundation in our culture, in our family values, in our past even, but that we also grow wings to soar to success. And I really believe that that's what going to college is about. That's why you're here, because you have a vision for your life and things that you want to do, and that you can also be empowered by your culture to do that. So that's the title of the presentation. So Raíces is roots for those of us who don't speak Spanish, and alas are wings. And she's my clicker. You can go ahead. You can go ahead. I'll talk about the Latino statistics in just a second, but a little bit about me. One of the things I tell students all the time is make sure who you're listening to. Make sure that you interrogate and reflect on what people say to you, whether that's a professor, whether that's an adult. What makes them legitimate, what makes them credible, right? I don't think that you just have to listen to an adult because they're an adult or they're a few years older. So a little bit about me. I'm Puerto Rican. Any Puerto Ricans in the house? It just takes two. That's it. There's from New York, born and raised in Spanish Harlem. My family is from Puerto Rico, from the northwestern part of the island, from these very small towns in the countryside, Camuy and Atillo. My parents came to this country in the 1950s in hope of a better life, like so many immigrants do, during a time called Operation Bootstrap, which is the 1950s. They brought a lot of people from Puerto Rico to New York, to Chicago, to big cities to work. And so my parents came. They actually met in New York, but they both came under that same Operation Bootstrap. My father was a taxi cab driver, gypsy cab, not a real yellow cab, but those, alternate ones. And my mother was a seamstress. And my father passed. He actually died the week I graduated from college. So there's a whole other story related to that. And my mother is still living, and in 2 weeks is coming to live with me in Arizona. She is 83 years old. I am the youngest of 8 children. Okay? When I was born, I have a twin sister. Her name is Marisol. When I was born, my oldest brother was 17 years old, starting his freshman year at college. So there's a huge distance. My brother's 60 years old. I'm 44. You're supposed to all look at me and be like, there's no way she could be 44. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? It's okay, I say it to myself if nobody else does. I'm from a large family, and my parents, neither one of them had a formal education. My mother had a 2nd grade education. My father had a 7th grade education. They worked the sugarcane fields of Puerto Rico, and then they came to New York to make a better life for us. And we were all born and raised in New York, in Spanish Harlem. And I oftentimes tell the audience, if you've ever seen that movie that came out some years ago called Precious, about that experience of growing up in Harlem, that's actually down the street from where I grew up, and those were the years that I was growing up. During the height of the crack epidemic and the way it ravaged major cities in particular. So I grew up in a lot of grit and grind. I still have it in me, even though I've been out in Arizona for 20 years. And then I did my undergrad in upstate New York in a small private school, sort of elite school, very wealthy kids went to. And me and my 20 closest friends were the broke students who managed our way through, called Marist College in upstate New York. And I got my degree in social work. And then I went to Arizona State University on a fluke. It was a program that was intended to help minority students get graduate degrees. It was an initiative, a grant, that was based out of Arizona State University called Project 1000. And they helped me with my graduate applications. I had never heard of Arizona, and I was like, I mean, what's in Arizona, right? I'm in New York. And I applied, and I got a full scholarship to Arizona State University. And I needed money to go to grad school, and a lot of the professors who were in education and higher education at the time, writing about the student experience, and particularly about the minority student experience, worked at ASU. And so in 1995, I moved out to Arizona State University to get my degree. Didn't know anybody, had never been there. I just got on a plane, packed my stuff, and showed up. And as I was telling the group that went to dinner with me just a few minutes ago, it was 122 degrees the day that I arrived. Literally. That was not an exaggeration. It was 122 degrees. And I just started crying. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And so from there, I went in and did my graduate degree. And fast forward, I've been at ASU. I'm the director of the First Year Success Center at ASU. ASU is the largest public university in the nation. We have 85,000 students. My freshman class alone is 11,000. Sophomore, I can't even stop counting at some point. But our center supports the retention of all first year and second year students. So I work every day, day to day with students like yourself. Large numbers of first generation, multicultural students. ASU has about 35 to 40% first generation college students. We're in the Southwest, obviously. So that's kind of my day-to-day work, and I've been there for 20 years. And I've also worked at 5 other institutions, universities, colleges, high school, community college. So I feel at home whenever I'm in a space like this. And I get to go to these conferences like the USLI conference and the like, to just try to talk with young people about the things that I've learned, both working professionally for over 20 years with students, but also in my own life. So really super quick, I wasn't planning on this. Like I said, sometimes I just digress from my PowerPoint. But somebody asked me recently, why do you do what you do? Why do you continue to work in universities Why do you go across the country and talk to people, or any chance I get to talk to young people in particular, and college students in particular, I take it. And it's because I had a really, really deeply rewarding experience in college, and also a pretty atrocious one, all at the same time. And for the rest of my life, probably, I'm going to work to change that, right? So when I went to college, first-gen student, I grew up in the housing projects in New York, in Spanish Harlem. I go to this very elite, sort of wealthy school, hostile campus climate. It was wild. It was wild. It was the 1980s. There was a lot of racial tensions with the police department in particular. There was a very famous case called the Tawana Brawley case, where there was an incident that happened in the town where I went to school, and there was all kinds of protests, and it all came to a head when the Ku Klux Klan walked across my campus in 1989, and I was a freshman. And that was a defining experience for me. And I share that with you because there's so many things that happen in our life during the college years that are crucible moments, right, that change your life. They might scare the heck out of you. They make you rise to the challenge. They may change your perspective, change your major. And so for me, what was happening on my college and in my life at that time was major and decisive. And so we got through that experience. I was heavily involved with the Black Student Union, Latino Student Union. We got through that experience. We protested, we rallied, we did all the things that student leaders and activists do. But then I also found myself dealing with my own sets of obstacles. So I fell in love. Anybody fell in love in college before? Love. Fell in love. I'm going to be transparent. So if you're into impression management and being too cool for me, you're going to be upset because I'm just real. I don't have a fake button in me. I'm too vieja to care about what anybody thinks about me anymore. So I'm just keeping it real, right? So I fell in love in college, right? Because it's like a real long love or lust or whatever it was. And got real caught up in this relationship, and was with this guy for like 3 years when I was in college. And it was a really bad relationship. It was a really bad relationship, like really like toxic, like he was psycho. No, seriously, I can laugh about it now, but back then it almost killed me, literally almost killed me. So I was in this crazy relationship, and I share this, I put this out in the open because about 1 in 4 students find themselves in toxic or abusive relationships in college. Did you know that? 1 in 4, statistically speaking. So I throw it out there just to just be real, that it could be happening in this room. It could be happening in a lot of places that I go. So I talk about it because it's important that we talk about these things so that we can stop those, patterns. And so I was in this crazy relationship, and this dude was all that. I don't know if you've heard my story before, but he was all that. I mean, job, good looking. Come on now, I was kind of cute back then too. Like we won like 25 years ago. I was, J-Lo had nothing on me. I'm serious. In New York with my big earrings and my lip gloss on. Anyway, I got involved in this relationship. It was a crazy relationship. Nobody knew it was a crazy relationship, abusive, emotionally mostly, but then physically. And it almost cost me my career. And I was the kid who my family was so proud of, right? I had gone to college, I'd gone on full scholarship, I was the one who took care of everybody else. I was a student leader, I was the president of the Latino Student Organization, but here I was dealing with my own private drama and hell, quite honestly. And I didn't know how to ask for help. And I finally asked for help when things really came to a head from counselors, from the director of Minority Affairs, from the director of my scholarship, from people like the people that you have here, and that I've heard so much about in getting here, that you have this community of support, whether that's through the TRIO programs or the medallion programs or these other programs that I've learned about, that you had these people. And it was those people, those adults and some of my own friends that literally saved my life, that literally got me out of that relationship and turned my situation around. And I managed to get out of the relationship, heal from all of that, and graduate with honors. I studied abroad. I lived in Spain for a semester, and then I went on to get into graduate school on the full ride. So the short version of my story is, no matter what you're going through, if you still hold fast and you ask for help and you don't ever give up, there is light at the other side of the tunnel. Okay? That's the short version. That's the sound bite. That's the cliff note of what I'm about to tell you. That you can go through all manner of things. Okay? I had a GPA of a 1.2 as a freshman. because I was in love, right? I was in love and independent and had keys to my own place. Didn't know what to do with myself, and I was 2 hours away from home. I was in love. I had a 1.2 GPA, and I subsequently graduated. When I turned it around and got the help, Dean's List every single semester, full ride to Arizona State University. I'm currently back finishing my doctoral program. So I oversee this center at ASU that's 90 staff, 30,000 appointments. It's huge. Blessed life. I have a 16-year-old son who's a high school junior. Very involved in the community, and I decided to finish what I started because I'm the kind of person. And so I'm finishing off my doctoral program. And my first semester back, got a 3.8. That's what's up, yes. Yeah, come on. Don't act like that. So that's who I am, and maybe sharing some of that resonates with you, maybe it doesn't, but all I know it to be is real, and all I came to do was to share with you what I've learned, both as a professional and as an educator, as a woman, as a mother, and to leave it all here tonight, all right? So however long it takes, that's what it takes. Whatever you want to ask me, I'm open to answering. I just like real conversation. There's no, we're not here to impress one another. So, some statistics, I thought it would just be good for context. For those of you who are not familiar with these statistics, then you can sort of read them yourself. Currently, this is about from 2014, 55 million strong, 119 million by the year 2060. That really is, that's in your lifetime, right? That's right around the corner. By the year 2060, 119 million, which would be over 28% of the population. We know, representing here, the big majority is Mexican-American students. How many of you? Come on, show some pride. What's up? This is the Multicultural Student Center here. The next population by a much more margin, but we're loud. And we like to have a good time is Puerto Ricans. So we have a couple of Puerto Ricans here. Yeah, that's what's up. And then a much smaller Cuban, and then all the other 22 countries that we hail from. Most of us are populated in states like my own: Arizona, Colorado, California, Florida, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, and Texas. Interesting. About $40,000 a year is our median income. I thought that was an interesting thing to learn. Almost 25% live in poverty. Okay. About the same lack health insurance. So on one hand, there's this strength and this might that comes from our numbers and our continual growth as a population. That's all you hear about in the national debates, and the presidential debates, and in every other conversation is the Latino vote. And you go to Ushley, and that's all we talk about. And that's really important because that's, that there is power in numbers, and there's a force to be contended with, but there's also all these other issues that we're facing simultaneously as we're growing in strength and in buying power of life. 24% Hispanics lack health insurance. I was telling somebody one day that I didn't have health insurance until I was like an adult working. And so somebody was like, "When's the first time you went to a dentist?" I said, "The first time I went to a dentist, I was 20-something years old, my first real job. Because when we were growing up, we were poor and we went to the free clinic and dental care wasn't part of it. So I didn't get dental care until I was 20-something years old, right? So those realities start setting in. 8% in the presidential election were Hispanic, and 1.2 million Latinos 18 and over. I also thought it was important to talk about education, so if you could just click there. I want to know your, I'm sorry, go back. Can you go back for just a second? I love this picture because that's all of us, right? We come in every shade. We are people from multiple roots, with African, with Spanish, with indigenous, and we're mixed people. My son is Black Puerto Rican, and I just love that our cultura is mixed in so many powerful ways from so many different countries and civilizations, and I think that's part of our power as well. So I just really like that image. This one's a little bit pixelated, but basically it talks about our power in numbers, both in purchasing power. So a lot of times the news and society wants us to paint us as if we don't have power or we don't make a contribution. Oh yeah, we make a contribution. We have a lot of power, okay? And I think this quantifies it. So let's see here. 37 members of Congress are Latino. let's see, 25% of all public school students are Hispanic in the nation. 1 in 4 kids is Hispanic. That's another good one. 55% of us live in just 3 states, California, Texas, and Florida. $1.2 trillion is our estimated buying power of the Hispanic population. Any of you guys like to shop? Did you know, I learned this a few years ago, that Latino women outspend every other group of women, including if you control by socioeconomic status, in one particular category. Guess what? Shoes. The guy said shoes. Possibly cosmetics. Because this takes work. Okay? Cosmetics outpace every group, regardless of socioeconomic status, right? Because that's part of our cultura, part of our aesthetic, right? Is beauty and representing well. So we have a lot of power in purchasing power. We also, an interesting thing, Latinos, especially your age, spend more time consuming, using technology and social media than others. How many hours a day would you say you spend on social media? How many hours? Come on, let's be real. Or some form of gadget or technology. We use it. We use it because we are a collectivist people. We're a communal people. We love relationship. We love chisme too, right? Yeah. So we spend a lot of time, and that's cool because, you know, technology has its benefits and stuff. But my concern sometimes is how much time we spend on it and the mindless part of it. Because let's just be real, we're not all like listening to TED Talks, right? Right? It's the mindless things. And I'm always telling students, man, you know, what's going on with your grades? Oh, I'm so busy, you don't even understand. And at this one particular kid, I was like, let's sit down and literally, just honestly go down your day and how much time. And he couldn't believe how much time he spent just surfing online, just, you know, reading or Instagram or whatever it is that you guys do. Like my son told me Facebook is for viejo, so I don't say Facebook. But those are time wasters, right? But it's also something we can leverage. So, true or false? First one, nationally, 25% of college students do not return after their first year in college. True? Okay. Hispanic students' degree attainment is the same as other students. Is it higher? Is it equal? Or is it lower? Lower? Okay. And 3, nationally, 35% of all undergraduates, regardless of race, do not graduate. The first one is true, and number 2 and 3 are false. Hispanic student degree attainment is lower, and it's definitely lower compared to white students and to Asian students. Very close neck and neck to African American students. The lowest from a national standpoint is American Indian students, Native students, but significantly lower, at least by 15 to 20 percentage points. Okay? And then third, nationally, 35% of all undergrads do not graduate. You guys thought that was true? 50%. Let that settle in for a second. Let that settle in. 50% of students who go for a college degree don't graduate. Why would this inspirational lady come in here, supposed to be giving an inspirational talk, and start with that? Because in order to win a fight, you need to know that you're in a fight. In order to win a fight. So the fact that you got in, that you got your scholarship, that's beautiful. That you got the sweatshirt that's there to prove it, that you're even doing well. But you all know it's taking a fight. And I'm meeting you at the end of the semester when you're probably weary from your fight. The 7th round in the ring, yeah? Yeah? I know everybody's like, how many more days are left? How many more days are left? I get that. I get that. But I want you to recognize the privilege, and it is a privilege, because as horrible and as difficult as our circumstances may be, mine were in college and yours are, and I will never underestimate that, because in my work with students, I see thousands of students' lives and the barriers that they go through. But no matter how difficult they are, you still belong to the privileged few in this country who actually have been able to access a higher education. So even when you're eating your ramen noodles and you're broke, and you're sleeping on your friend's couch and you're figuring how you're going to pay rent, or how you're, yeah, that's right, he's like, yeah, all of that. You are a privileged few, okay, percentage-wise, and the further along you go, in terms of your academics, even less so. The other day, I was finishing one of my doctoral classes. I was stressed out. My son's trying to talk to me. I'm in the middle of my move. My mother's coming to live with me. Oh, and by the way, in the midst of all of that, I published my second book. A little busy, just a tad, stressed out, feeling sorry for myself, because we do that as humans. And I said, let me look this up. Less than 2% of Latinos have doctoral degrees. 2%. And I imagine that if you deconstructed that to Latinas, it'd be even less than that. And that was enough to make me fight again, to get through that final exam, right? So sometimes adversity is our fuel. You need to learn how to turn that around. But I want you to know that you're in here for a fight. It's not a belligerent fight with each other, but it's a fight towards your finish line. And some of you are just getting started, and some, like your student leaders here, are midway. And we were just talking about that today, that the middle part is the hardest part, right? The middle, ain't that right? Because when you new, it's new, right? It's all fresh and shiny, and it's all exciting, and you got the brochure, and you're telling your friends, and you got to decorate your dorm, and it's all cute, right? And then when you're a short timer, like I saw some young woman, she's a short timer? You're a short timer? About to graduate? Somebody's about to graduate. Yeah. That's what I call a short timer. Okay, they'd be like, yeah, I got 24 days, 16 hours, you know. So when you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's a beautiful thing, right? And it's in the front, and you got your cute little refrigerator, and you got your outfit and your sweatshirt, that's cute. But when you're in the middle, and everybody stops celebrating, come on, let's be real, anybody in the middle? We're all in the middle. And the middle is hard because you come too far to turn back now. It's kind of how I felt last night at Chicago O'Hare at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I came too far, I can't go back. Kalamazoo is only, 30 minutes on the plane or something. You've come too far to turn back, but what's before you is unclear, right? And your energy has waned, and those kinds of things. So I get it, I get it. Okay, you're in the middle. Hold on, okay? You're in for a fight, but you can also win. Just some more data there. You can just sort of look at that for yourself, just proportionately. And you can just, add a few more digits to that for all multicultural students. It's important to know the context that you're in. It's important to know that this is not just your particular experience, your particular set of barriers. Your institution is a national agenda. And yes, we're making some progress and we're making some wins, but we still got a long way to go. Yes.
I don't know, but even if it's right to compare us to like what people because like some like for Hispanics, like sometimes we're like underprivileged, like should we really
I don't know if the word is right.
like yeah, it's not right, but like
Is it an equal comparison? Is it an equal experience?
I don't know how to
Well, no, I think you make a really valid point. A lot of the research in most areas will use the majority culture as a standard, right, for a comparison from a research perspective. So that's pretty much how research is written, and then all other groups in comparison too. But I think part of what you're saying is this recognition that we all, including white people, by the way, have diverse experiences, right? So white itself is a category that's a big lump sum of people. So there are poor white people, there are rich white people, there are middle class white people, there's first gen white people. But usually in education, you see these comparisons because that's where a lot of the educational research came from, and to show where we are, not in comparison to them because they are our standard, but because they're the majority, right? But soon we're going to be the majority, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't think it's not a statement that we're all the same. That's definitely not the same statement. But it is sort of the standard that I've been using in educational research. Mr. Ramirez, maybe would you add to that? I mean, that's sort of the way research has been written.
Pretty much, yeah, I would agree with that. It's in some of the stats you were mentioning, it's very familiar to me because I do read a lot of information. So that just validates. But I see her point, and it is we compare, I guess.
Apples to oranges?
Correct.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you gotta have a point to start somewhere. You gotta be, whether it's equal or not, but still, you have a rule.
Right, a starting place. It's not an end all. And this is the key piece, right? So as we become increasingly larger in numbers and in the educated populace, we have some catching up to do. Not catching up to them, but catching up proportional to the size of our population, right? To do. And so that's the main point I'm trying to make with this particular graph. 1 out of 3 students are first generation college. How many of you are the first one in your family to go to college? So I'm curious, what does that mean to you? What is it when you identify yourself as a first generation college student? What does that mean? What is that experience like? Like if I was an alien from outer space, how would you describe that to me?
You giving up, it'll be like a huge disappointment because they can get something like their bar is down, not saying it.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's like being thrown into like the world that is open, that you have, being a first generation college student, you have nobody that's ever been in your shoes. So it's pretty much jumping into something that you have no idea about at all, and nobody there to help you, give you advice, give you guidance that can really do so much to certain things that you haven't done before.
My younger brother goes here now, but I kind of like think that being the first in my family to my parents stopped helping me with school when I was like in 3rd grade. They couldn't help me doing homework. So since then I became more independent and going to college, like not knowing any of the resources. So I kind of had to take that initiative. But now I kind of help anyone else that are like in the same shoes. Like I help first year students who are like lost and stuff because I know how they felt. So I kind of don't want anyone else ever to feel that way because I know how it felt. So with my brother, I maybe baby him sometimes, but I don't want him to ever feel lost or ever doesn't have a resource. So it is a lot of pressure because the bar is set high. Like everyone's looking up to you you're the first one to do this and you don't want to fail. That's the pressure that you have.
Anybody else?
Sure, I didn't know what first generation was when I got to the campus. All I know is that I have scholarship full ride to come here. I arrived here in a bus to downtown Kalamazoo. I didn't know a soul. But I didn't know what first generation, my background is migrant farm workers, I was good enough